and I left school, and I worked for Dad for a while.
Ah, okay. So how old were you?
Coming up to 14.
So what did you do for your dad?
Machining, making pillows and mattresses for the cots. Oh, we did all sorts of things, and then Mum said I ought to get myself a job. And
So was he paying you?
oh yes, but only a pittance, sort of pennies and halfpennies sort of thing. And I went up to Celia to get a job. And for the interview, I remember my mother saying I had to wear a hat. And I had a velour hat that was like a school hat, a round one with a brim round it, 2-inch brim round it. And I felt such a fool in this hat that I wore it as I left home, stuck it in my pocket, and didn't wear it again till I got home. The man that was interviewing me is somebody, your dad here. I didn't know Daddy at that time. But this man, he was very kind, and he knew I was nervous, and he asked me all sorts of questions as he took me up to his office. And I know the one that he asked me was how many farthings in your pound, and I was trying to work it out. I think it was 480 farthings in the pound. And that was the one question that I evidently got right, and he then told me to start work on the Monday. The job was really a cashier for the catering, where they had dinners and
So taking the money
lunches.
on the till sort of thing?
Yes, they could only get
In the canteen?
Get stuff in the canteen with a ticket.
Right.
So they had to come and buy their tickets from me. And I had a little cubicle made that was like a telephone box almost.
Mm.
A little bit longer than a telephone box. And I had shelves round, and I had my money box there and my reel of tickets.
And how old were you at this time?
Prices.
15?
Coming up to 15, 16.
That's very young. Yeah.
I got 16 shillings for my first wage packet.
That was for a month?
A week.
Oh, that's good. I bet you were rich.
Well, I know when I got home, my mother told me how it was going to be sorted out. I had to give her 4 shillings. I could have 4 shillings myself. 4 shillings went into the post office, and the other 4 shillings I think I had to give Dad towards the house, which was plenty for me at that time. It paid for the cinema, and I bought a few sweets and that sort of thing. I could bring some sweets home and give the boys. And that job lasted me a year, mainly because I got bored. And I did ask, I still can't remember the name of the man, and he got me a typewriter, and I learnt to do typewriting, because so much of my time was sitting doing nothing, because the only time I was selling tickets was morning coffee time, lunch time, and afternoon tea time.
Mm.
And the rest of the time I had nothing to do. So I learnt to type. Then he started giving me a few letters to type. But I was so bored that I decided I didn't want to stay there any longer. And I got a job working for Grover's of Forest Gate, where my sister was working at the time.
What sort of company was that?
Builders. builders. And I worked in the office there. And I stayed there until after I was married.
Was it quite easy to pick up new jobs? In those days?
I think I only got the job through my sister working there, and they wanted somebody else in the office. While I was working at Celia, I met Auntie Florrie, who was working as one of the waitresses in the kitchen. And so she was part of my area that I was working in. And then she told me her father was working there, and he was a white coat, which was one of the top people in Celia. And eventually she pointed him out when he came down for his lunch. She pointed him out, and I got to know him.
It was just that Celia and I became friends at work. And the weekends we used to spend time together. And I'd go over to your place in Park Road. And then Celia would come to the Reed household. I was a bit careless one day when I was following Celia. A single file, it must have been, because the road was a bit busy. I accidentally went too near Celia's bike. Just touched her quick.
What happened?
Just threw her off.
No wonder she was like she was. How did she land?
I can't remember. It wasn't terrible.
I bet you laughed.
He came off and got a bit bruised. And because Fred and Celia joined forces and went out together, I didn't feel very happy about that.
Auntie Florrie said, my brother's come home on leave. Would you like to meet him? And I was a very shy person. And I just said, yes, I'd like to meet him. Especially when we were going home and Fred walked past up the road,
Yeah.
and Florrie said, that's my brother. And I thought, gosh, he looks handsome. When he walked me home, he was on his way to a nurse's home. She lived in a flat, and there was a group of people that met there and played cards.
Who, you say she lived in a flat, who's she?
This nurse, I didn't know her, but I knew of her. I don't think I ever met her.
So was he courting her?
Not really, but he was friendly with her. Anyway, I thought that was his girlfriend. And I thought I was a bit young for him anyway. I was 16, 17.
And he was?
Well, I suppose he was
18.
20.
Yeah.
And I was still a young 17, 18-year-old. Eventually, he asked me if I'd write to him. And it was always very short. And
how long was he away at any one time then?
well, I suppose he used to nip over to America and back, and then have a short leave, and then do another trip. But when I started writing to him, he was away for 6 months. And by the time he was finished, he was writing loving letters. So I suppose it stemmed from that. When he came home, he'd take me out, and we sort of grew together.
Did you keep any of the letters?
I still got all my letters up in the loft somewhere. Don't know where, but they're up there somewhere. And of course they were all letters like an email letter, and he used to write it on about 4 pages, and they were about 4 by 4 square, and they were printed. I don't know, it was all because of security. They weren't allowed to say where they were or what they were doing.
Mm.
And it was all scrutinised, you know.
So it's all checked before you got them?
Checked before I got them. And it used to come, one letter would come in about 4 parts. I'd be waiting for number 3. I'd already got number 4. And, by this time, I'm sorry to say, the time I started writing to him, we'd moved from Brentwood to Emerson Park. So when he came to see me, when he came home, he had to come to Emerson Park. And more often than not, he used to walk home. Or walk to the station in Gidea Park and get a train to Brentwood. But if he missed the last train, he'd walk home.
How many miles was that?
It's about 6 miles, isn't it?
I don't know. It's a long way.
It's a long way. And shooting Auntie Margaret, that was when we hadn't been going out very long.
Mm.
And he came over, because he only came over when he was on leave from Merchant Navy.
Yeah.
And he came over, and Uncle Stanley had a gun. I suppose it was a rifle or a rabbit shooting gun, I don't know what it was. But of course, he let Fred have a go. And Margaret was leaning out of the window on the landing.
Yeah.
And she said something to him, and he pointed the gun at her. And she said, "Don't shoot me," and he shot. And he hit her on her little finger. And she did make a scene over that. But
did he realise what he was doing? Obviously he didn't.
I don't suppose he thought he'd ever hit her. He'd never shot a gun before.
He was a crack shot. So was Daddy your first boyfriend?
Not really. I had boyfriends, but they were friends.
Yeah.
We used to go swimming a lot and that sort of thing.
So really and truly Daddy did all the running?
Mm.
Mm. But you quite liked him, you thought he was quite a handsome fella?
Yeah. He was a handsome fella.
And he's not now?
Well, I don't know. Some people think he's handsome.
He is. You've got used to him?
Yeah, you get used to them and you don't call him handsome anymore. You just think, oh, well, he's a nice fella.
So what did your mum and dad think of him when you first took him home?
Before I took him home, he brought home from one of his trips, and he gave me a watch as a present. And he bought one for his mum, one for his sister, and one for me. My mum said I ought to give it back. And I said I can't give it back.
On what basis?
Because you know what sailors are like. And she thought I was getting too involved with a sailor who probably had girls all over the world. He used to come home and spend quite a lot of time with me. I used to go home to his house until his father got jealous and refused to have me in the house.
Jealous of what?
Well, he didn't think he should get serious with me, and he didn't like it. But before that, his father was quite friendly, and he used to ask me all about income tax and how this worked and how that worked. And so once we got engaged, his father wouldn't let me in the house anymore. So of course he spent more and more time over at my place.
So that meant you had to cut off the detachment with Florrie as well?
Oh no, Florrie was all right.
No, but I mean you couldn't go to the house, you'd have to see her somewhere else other than...
Well, Fred used to bring her over sometimes, or I'd go.
And what about his mum?
His mum was all right. And he never accepted me until our wedding day, and he then come up and apologised.
Saying
he was sorry he refused to let me in the house, and
I wonder why.
he hadn't spoken to me for so long. Must have been my 21st birthday. We got engaged.
46.
Yes, and we went to Isle of Man for holiday. Oh, that was it. We couldn't go on holiday. We weren't allowed to go on holiday together unless we were engaged.
Oh.
And so we got engaged. He didn't actually...
So you could go on holiday together then?
Yeah.
Oh.
Because my mum and dad wouldn't let me go on holiday unless I was engaged.
Would you have got engaged then if you weren't going on holiday?
Possibly, but it possibly would have been when we come back. But no, it had to be before. It was very...
Things had to be proper.
Yeah.
Right.
Anyway, nothing happened when we were away. And we went to Isle of Man, and we went there because there was separate accommodation for girls and boys.
Right. So you went on just the two of you?
Just the two of us, but we met two very nice people there.
Yeah.
And they were doing the same as we were.
Right.
The day we got married was Derby Day.
Oh.
And I asked Daddy to put some money on my love,
Right.
which was running.
Yeah.
And I think he put £half on it or something.
Goodness.
And I had asked him to put some money on it, not £1. Anyway, it came in, it won.
Yeah.
And I think we got 7 6pence. I spent it on the wedding licence. I didn't see the winnings.
Oh.
And it was 7 6 to get married.
Right, so that's the Derby Day paid for you to get married.
Yeah.
Well, but when you were talking about putting a bet on, what was in your head?
Oh, a £5.
Oh, right, so that was a taste of things to come then.
Yeah,
you
I
married
did.
A cautious man.
Yes.
Cautious with his money. So anyway, so you got married, and where did you start out married life then?
Well, at the Elms.
Yeah.
The first 2 months.
Yeah.
We stayed at the Elms.
Mhm.
We had bought 10 Westcott Close,
Mhm.
but the people were still in it and we couldn't get them out
Oh.
because their exchange or wherever they were going didn't move.
Mhm.
So we didn't get into our house for a couple of months, 2 or 3 months.
Mhm.
And then it was so filthy that we didn't move in because
Had to clean it all.
we had to clean it all and paint it. And
Can you remember how you felt at that time when you were starting out? You know, did you feel about your life to come? Did you think it was going to be an easy life? You know, or did you feel, what I'm trying to get at, did you feel privileged that you had a house of your own? Or?
oh yes, because not many people had their own houses when they first got married.
Yeah.
In actual fact, Daddy said he wouldn't get married till he could provide a house.
Right. Was that sort of secure? You know, did it help you feel secure about getting married and all that? You know,
Oh yes, I didn't care about any of that when I did get married.
Right.
As long as I had somewhere to go,
Yeah.
and we were able to stay at home, and
Your own place.
we had a room downstairs in the Elms.
Right. Okay. Okay. So you'd have been happy to stay with your mum.
Yeah, because I did all my own cooking
Yes. Yeah.
and kept my room clean
Yeah. Yeah.
and did my washing and all that.
Yeah.
So Mum didn't look after me or Fred.
Yeah.
I felt very funny about washing his underwear and hanging it out on the line.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure you did. Yeah.
But the only thing I really remember after that was cooking his dinner, and he was late home because he was doing painting and decorating when.
So he had his own business, did he? When
no, I don't think he had his own business straight away. He worked for somebody else to start with. Anyway, he was a bit late home, and I left his dinner on a saucepan, covered over, on a low gas. And when he came home, Uncle Stanley had come in and eaten his dinner. I had no dinner for him.
Oh dear.
And I really let rip at Uncle Stanley. I think I was only earning £4 a week. So, you know, to have to go out and buy another dinner was quite expensive for me. I think I had £3 a week housekeeping.
Did you choose 10 Wheels Got Close Together?
Yeah. He found it and took me there to see it. And the only thing I didn't like was when we viewed it, the place stank of fish. And I went into the kitchen and opened the larder door, and there was hanging fish. A great big fish hanging in the larder. And well, the first thing I did when I went to the house and it was empty was scrubbed out the kitchen. And for days after we first got married, we used to come down and find things in the larder eaten. We didn't know what it was. And I was pregnant with Maureen, and I used to get up in the night. One night I came down and there was a huge white slug eating, I think it was cheese.
Oh no.
And I screamed when we got Dad out of bed. He got rid of the slug. And then we sort of, I think he put new floorboards down and things. Realised that there was holes in the floor, that they were coming up through the floor.
Oh yes, yes.
We had Daddy met some people on the boat, and we were quite friendly with the mother. They had the back room upstairs and the back room downstairs, and we lived in the front room. Upstairs and downstairs.
Yeah.
And that carried on for quite a long while. But at that time we were putting shillings in the meter for gas and electric.
Yes.
And I always had a supply of shillings on the mantelpiece. But when I got home, more often than not, my shillings on the mantelpiece had disappeared. And I thought Daddy had been using them, you see. But we found out it wasn't Daddy using them, it was the people we'd taken in. And we'd come in and there'd be no gas, we got no shillings in the house. And I complained like mad, and eventually told them they'd have to find somewhere else.